I went from a stay-at-home mom of 16 years to a junior software engineer within 1 year. And I did it in my 40s, which sounds impressive. And I can see why a lot of people think that, because it is difficult to go into tech and to do it in such a short time and to do it at that age. But today I want to talk about the shift I made within that career, about how I got there, what it cost me, what it gave me, and why I chose peace over a bigger paycheck. So if you have ever made a decision or a choice that was right for you, but you could not really explain it to anyone else or to make sense to them, this is for you. Leah, you didn't start tech in the traditional way. How did you get there? So like I said, I was a stay-at-home mom for 16 years. And in that time, I did have my holistic wellness. I've always been passionate about health and fitness. So I did have that. And I did get certified in rational emotive behavior therapy techniques, which I'll touch on later. But I was also raising kids, so my focus was more on that. And I also traveled with the dance crew, so my focus was on dancing. And I absolutely loved that. So honestly, my husband was supporting us fully, and my income was just, supplementing at that time. So when my husband and I decided mutually to get a divorce, and we're very amicable about everything, I knew that I couldn't just, start building my business back up, and I needed to get into something where I was not starting over. That, I was making enough money to keep the house, because I wanted to keep my kids in their childhood home. I don't want anything else to shift in their lives. So that's why my brother actually encouraged me to go into tech, because he had been a software engineer at Microsoft for over 10 years, a senior developer. So he encouraged me to go into tech, which at first I was like, no, I can't. I am a creative, and, I love health and fitness, but at that time, reality and bills had to be paid. So I found a coding bootcamp, and I, started there. By the third day, I wanted to quit. I was crying. It was so difficult. And I'm not scared of hard work, but imagine that you come in, hit the ground running, and every 6 weeks, we were learning a new programming language. So 6 weeks of Java, Friday, and then, the sixth week, Friday, you'd have an exam, and then Monday, you're starting the next programming language. So 6 weeks of SQL, 6 weeks of JavaScript, and on and on. So it was very, very difficult. And I was so lucky at the time that, honestly, my husband said, okay, just worry about school, and I'll support you. And my agreement with him was, hey, let me get on my feet, so that I don't want alimony. I don't want half your 401k at this point. I just want to be able to support myself so that we start over. We're both starting from a good place. So I'm so glad that he supported me in that, because when the girls were in school, I was in school as well. And then on the weekends, I was able to study, because anyone who did it alongside working, I don't even know how. It was so demanding. So after I finished school, actually COVID hit. I landed a few interviews, and the funny thing is they would say, okay, we want a junior software engineer, but then they would want 2 years of experience. And I'm thinking, okay, if I'm a junior and I just finished school, like, how does that work? But finally I landed the interview of the company that I actually am still with, 6 years later. And I was so nervous, but my professor said, go in there, you have good soft skills, you've learned a lot. They don't expect you to know everything. They just want you to be excited to learn and to be somebody that they can work with. So one thing that I think I did well was, while I was interviewing and I'd finished school, I was still going on YouTube or Udemy, and I was taking these courses or building projects. So I was able to show them something exciting I'd built. I had built this app where it was giving real COVID numbers at that time in a certain area that if you put in the numbers. So when they saw that, they were like, okay, she's continuing learning. She's eager to get into this field. So I think that really helped me. What was your experience working in tech those first few months? I am so blessed that my team was such a good team, because I had heard so many horror stories of how a lot of engineers have like this God complex and they'd be rude to work with. But my team was amazing. They took me under their wing, and they guided me through the whole thing. And honestly, they told me it's not even going to be the code that's difficult. It'll be learning the business logic, because I was working for a pharmaceutical company. So we had all this reconciliation, and I'm not going to go into the details of that because that'll be too boring for you, but just learning the business logic. So that was a great experience. When did you switch to QA engineering, and why? After about 9 months of working in software development, writing code, and just getting familiar with the business, the vice president, it was a smaller company at that time. Since then, we've been bought out by a company in Silicon Valley, so it's much larger. But at that time, he gave me the option to go into different areas of the business and see if I found a better fit or if I liked where I was, which was so amazing. So I went to different areas, and I ended up loving QA engineering. And There was a little bit of fear on my part because I knew it would be less coding, so I didn't want to lose the skills that I already had. What I chose wasn't manual QA, where it's just the front of the application or the website and just making sure that things weren't breaking on that end. It was actually a lot of automation engineering so that I wouldn't lose the coding languages that I had learned. And so QA is really systems thinking at the highest level. So it's knowing where things can break, like where the last point before something is released into production or to the customer. So like if we're working on features on a website, we're the last people to say, yes, this is okay, this is good to go. And a lot of money's involved. I mean, we're dealing with pharmaceuticals and millions of dollars being moved every day. So it's a crucial part of the business. QA also requires a lot of precision, pattern recognition, and high analytical thinking. So it wasn't less than software engineering, it was just different. What was the main reason you chose QA engineering? To tell you the truth, I had teenagers at the time. My oldest was out of the house, but I had my 2 younger daughters here. And I was a single mom at this point. And as much as their dad is involved, the day-to-day would be on me. And I knew that if I remained in software engineering, the stress level would be different. And I chose QA engineering because it had a better work-life balance. What do people say when you switched? So first, my brother, he understood because I had been a stay-at-home mom because I knew that came first, that raising my daughters came first. So when I stepped into working from home, and thank God I got that opportunity to do that, I wanted the same balance. I knew I wouldn't be as available as when I was a stay-at-home mom, but I didn't want stress. So he understood. Now, some of my other software developer partners teased me. They're like, oh, you know, that's a step back. And it wasn't though. Like another seasoned developer, when I was doubting myself, said, it's not a step back. It's different. You're still going to code. You're still going to analyze. You're still going to figure out solutions to problems. And the funnest part is my job is to break things. How cool is that? Like I go in there and I try to see like if someone is using the system, what would they do? What things would they do that would break it? Or what can I do to break it? And that's just so much more fun than just coding. What did switching cost you? So the first thing, I'm going to be honest, was identity. Because imagine being a 40-something-year-old woman, and there's like a lot more men in tech, being an immigrant, being an Ethiopian, and not having experience and breaking into tech was very impressive. So releasing that external validation that came with that is one of the things I would say. It required me to do the identity work that I now teach, which is separating my worth from my output or my paycheck. Because I knew when I made that decision that yes, I would still make good money, but software engineering and staying in coding would have taken me further faster. So I knew that it would cost me some of my paycheck, that I wouldn't advance as fast. What did it give you? It gave me peace. It gave me time with my daughters. It gave me margin, presence, creative capacity, because there is no way that I would have built the Rhythm Sanctuary or anything that I'm building, or being at my daughter's games, just shutting my laptop at 5 p.m., or even having a flexible schedule and being able to cook breakfast for my daughters and doing devotionals in the morning, dropping them off at school. It's almost like still a stay-at-home mom. And I couldn't have done all that white knuckling a high-stress engineering role. The downloads I get from God, the creativity, all of that would have dried up if my nervous system was shot. So what QA did was give me this job that I am great at, but it doesn't consume every available corner of my mind or my life. And I work with other women engineers, software engineers, who are juggling a lot, and honestly, they're burnt out. I have one friend who worked every weekend for a year, and she has a 3-year-old, and she regrets not being able to really spend time with him. Now, my advice is always to the women I work with, if you are able, and you have a young child, be a stay-at-home mom. And I'm not saying don't have anything for yourself, but when I tell you, it just works better if you have a supportive husband, if you can do that. It's just God's design, and if people don't agree, that's okay. But from my experience and everyone I've looked at around me, that seems like the best season to do that, so that you are not burnt out. So I do work with women engineers, software engineers, And I see a lot of burnout. I see a lot of caring. They are still wives and mothers, and then they're engineers, so they are doing it while the kids are asleep, and it just never ends. So every time I look at that, I know I made the right decision. Even though they get paid a little bit more than I do, I was willing to take that cut and to close some doors of getting that to that money faster, to have peace and to enjoy my weekends and to enjoy my evenings, to go to my kids' volleyball games and support them in every kind of way and just be there, be present for them. And it also gave me something unexpected. It deepened my message. What I am saying is your worth is not tied, your identity is not tied to your output, that you're choosing peace over a bigger paycheck or prestige. So I could not have built what I'm building without first living that. You can't lead anyone somewhere where you're not willing to go yourself. Thoughts on what AI is doing to the tech industry, and what do you see? I see some fear, and I understand it because I feel it a little bit too. We are seeing what AI thinks, what skills are valuable in tech, and it's changing fast. And things that required significant human expertise are being automated, which is another reason I went into automation engineering, and I'm staying abreast with how QA and AI would tie together. And the question that every person in tech is asking is, am I next? Is my job next? And I don't have a comfortable answer for that, but I have a perspective, which is that the people who are going to make it are not going to be the most skilled. They're going to be the most adaptable. So people who can think across systems, who can understand people, who can communicate effectively, who bring creativity and good judgment to problems that pure automation just can't solve. Those skills are going to compound. They're not just going to go away. How are you thinking about this for your daughters and the other young women you eventually want to serve? This is where it gets personal for me. I have a 26-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 16-year-old, and some of the advice that I would have given them for careers and entrepreneurship is partially obsolete. But what I want for them and what I want to eventually take back to Ethiopia is not just a skill set, but foundation. I want them to know how to build, how to create something using their gifts that belongs to them, how to leverage technology using STEAM, so science, technology, engineering, art, math, and not to just get a job, but to build a life, build their own income, build their own business, and to have their own agency, because agency is what changes everything. And agency is something I'm building towards myself because I want to make decisions out of freedom of abundance. And I don't want to be in a position where you can't leave something because you can't afford to. That's what I want for my daughters. That's what I want to take to Ethiopia. And that is what I'm doing right now. This is proof that a woman can start over in her 40s, that you can build something real, that you can create opportunities where there were none. So honestly, this isn't just a business goal for me. This is legacy. How does all of this, the career switch, the identity work, the AI navigation, connect to what you're building with the Rhythm framework? I would say it's all the same story told from different angles. For instance, the career switch is me choosing identity over output, choosing who I am over what I produce. That's literally where we start in Rhythm Sanctuary, remembering who you are. The nervous system depletion I felt in that high stress season is what I teach other women to navigate through the rhythm types. Think of the anchor who keeps adding weight, the catalyst who keeps burning out, the nurturer who keeps giving from empty. I lived those patterns before I named them. And the AI navigation, figuring out how to stay relevant, how to build something that compounds, how to use technology as a tool for your calling instead of for survival. And that's really the rhythm engineer in me applied in the real world. So what I'll say is I did not know this at the time, but everything that I have lived through has been preparing me for what I'm building. And I will say that to you. I encourage you to hide Romans 8:28 in your heart. We know that for those who love God, that everything works for good to those that are called according to his purpose. So everything works together for good. Everything. Nothing is wasted in your journey. Nothing is too late. Everything is on time. And you don't know it until it happens. But just trust God and be obedient, and he will bring everything to fruition in the right time. What would you say to the woman who has made a difficult choice that is right for her but is hard to explain to others? I would say the discomfort of other people not understanding your choices is temporary, but the cost of making choices that appease them will be life-changing. You will spend your entire life living for people who are not paying your bills, raising your children, or lying in your body at night. And I come from a collective culture, so America is more of an individualistic culture. We worry about purpose and individual happiness, and the culture I come from, a collective culture, is worried about the whole, which there's beautiful things in that as well. But what that means is that when you make decisions, it can't just be about your happiness, but sometimes that can, and I understand that, like, because your choices affect other people as well. But there were decisions, for instance, the first decision I made that no one agreed with was quitting my corporate job and being a stay-at-home mom in my late 20s. And I have friends who are now 40-something who climbed the corporate ladder higher than me. But honestly, like, me taking that time to be a stay-at-home mom with my kids, and yes, even my family's like, you're so smart, you're going to waste time and your potential. And I wasted nothing. I actually helped build God's kingdom, because that is our job as mothers, is to put good, God-fearing, God-loving citizens into this world, to put a light in the world for God. So I would not take that away. I do not care about the corporate ladder that I did not climb, because at the end of the day, here I am, where God helped me design a life that I love, where I still have my values in line, and I'm still making enough money, more than I need, really, to tell you the truth. There's just some goals that I have, like I have explained before. But for me to go from, as a stay-at-home mom, I was able to take the kids to school, cook them breakfast every morning, do devotionals with them, pick them up early, drop off lunch, go have lunch with them if I wanted to. And that didn't stop. Now, like, I work from home to where I can still do all those things. So that to me is the richest life possible. But it wasn't something that a lot of people around me were supporting at the time. But I have no regrets. I am so glad, because I'm the one who made that decision, and I would have been the one living that life. So I feel very fulfilled that I was able to do that. So whether it is a woman deciding to be a stay-at-home mom, or start her own business, or quit corporate, or go into corporate, whatever it is, choose peace and choose the version of your actual life, and not the one that would get the most approval. And that's not you being selfish. That's stewardship of what God has given you. Where does someone start if this is resonating with them? I always say start with the free quiz, because everything I teach starts with learning how you are wired. Your rhythm type tells you how you drift, how you come back on rhythm. It tells you whether you're an anchor over functioning in silence, or if you're a seeker consuming everything and settling into nothing, or if you're a catalyst burning fast and burning out. When you know your type, everything makes sense. Like your creative blocks, your career decisions, your relationship patterns, your body signals, everything starts making sense through this framework. It'll take you 3 minutes. So the link will be somewhere in here in the description. So I encourage you to take the quiz, find your type, and come home to yourself. I want to give you something practical before you go. So if you are in a role or a relationship or a season that is costing you more than it's giving back, but you're not ready to leave it yet, I want you to do this. I call it the nervous system audit. 3 questions. Number 1, does your work follow you home? Not physically, but in your body. Are you carrying it at dinner, at bedtime, when you wake up at 3 a.m.? Number 2, are you building capacity in this role, or are you depleting it? Meaning, do you have more energy or bandwidth or creativity because of this role, or less of it? Number 3, if you removed the money completely, would anything about this role be fulfilling you? If you answered yes to number 1 and no to number 2 and number 3, your nervous system already knows the answer. You just need permission to trust it. Write those 3 answers down, date it, and that's your data. You don't have to make a decision today, but you need to stop pretending you don't know what your body is telling you. That's the work. That's a rhythm. The free quiz is linked below, and I will show you what rhythm type you are and how your wiring is connected to the decisions that you keep circling. I'll see you there. Stay on beat. Bye.